Hey guys, welcome to Digital Outlook. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm just feeling an honor and a privilege to be able to introduce you to Vandell with Black Swan Capital. So, welcome, Vandell. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you very much for having me, Judy. Happy to be here. I've always admired your channel, you and David. So I love what you're doing. I love the content. The message is very good. It's inspiring, and you're educating people at the same time. So thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thank you. I feel the same way about your channel. One thing I just want to do a little infomercial here for the crypto community is that I really love being in this space because I think you'll agree we're not in competition with each other. We're all here to take the crypto community to new heights and new levels. And it's not, oh, those are my people or your people. We all are trying to just come together, like the sincere ones, I think at least, are don't you find that everyone's just trying to like help each other and there's no competition? It's like, hey, like and subscribe, like get involved. And so that's how I feel about your channel too. I'm want all of you to like and subscribe if you're not part of Black Swan Capital. And I'll make sure David, has the link down there. I want you guys to go sign up. They're at like 33,000, I think, subscribers. Let's get them to 50, you guys. Let's like bump them up and get them up there because they're really worth a listen, and the information they have is really awesome. And saying that, Vandell, I'm going to let you go ahead and just explain what you guys do, you and your brother, with Black Swan Capital, because some of our subscribers don't know who you are, but they will.
Yeah, definitely. So for Swan and I, we have the YouTube channel where we try to educate and inform, our audience and viewers as much as possible in all areas, from global economics, global finance, to banking, investing, and a little bit of cryptocurrencies and digital assets, because essentially they're all tied in together. So that's what we use the channel for. And we have a website and a small company, a business that him and I run together, where we offer one-on-one coaching and consulting. And basically, we try to help people capitalize on blockchain technology and digital assets while protecting themselves with precious metals, because we feel like cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, it's all here to stay. It's going to gain adoption. It's not going anywhere. And it's an opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity to create really a fortune, and capitalize on that. And that's an investment.
Yes.
And gold, silver, precious metals, we don't see that as really an investment, but as a wealth preservation asset. So we teach people how to cap on this once in a lifetime opportunity while protecting themselves. And we offer one-on-one Zoom calls. So that's what we do at Black Swan Capitalist.
That's awesome. I know I told David, we should probably just like sign up so we could be part of it. I love hearing what everyone has to say and all that. Yeah, I just spilled water everywhere, but that's okay.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah. It's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in because I know our viewers from the messages and things. So let me put on my glasses here so I can see all my notes here. So the first thing I wanted to discuss with you, Vandell, and you touched on it a little bit, but I know you can go into more detail, is people are always focusing on the price of XRP. How rich will they be? How do I get, the most out of, my XRP and how quick it is? And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, the price and why would someone invest in XRP, and how it's not about it's not just about the price. And I want you to talk a little bit about that for our viewers, because I think they think it's like a casino, like they're like, come on, 7, and they want instant gratification, and that's not what XRP is about. They're in the wrong coin or the wrong asset if they think that's what's going to happen like immediately.
Yeah, definitely. So XRP is very unique in many ways. It's a digital asset. It's a liquidity token, and it's essentially a financial instrument for moving value. So in simple terms, when you buy XRP or any digital asset for that matter, it's like you're buying a piece of the network. It's kind of like you're investing in a company, but you're not. You're owning a piece of the network of the blockchain. That's essentially what you're doing. So I hate the cryptocurrency term. It really puts a bad taste in people's mouth, especially traditional investors. So that's the way you got to look at it. And XRP, as I said previously, it's unique because it's a liquidity token and it has a lot going for
Mm-hmm.
it that other digital assets in the space do not have. If we're talking about moving value, XRP can move the most amount of value in the quickest amount of time for the smallest amount of cost in the most energy efficient way. So for moving value, there's nothing that does that besides XLM. And the thing is, XRP and XLM, based on our research, we don't believe they're competing technologies and digital
Mm-hmm.
assets, but they complement one another. And why is that? Because if you really do your research on both of them, the leaders behind the tech, the digital asset itself, the partnerships, and their agendas, they're both targeting different markets, different sectors of the economy. So XRP is moving value for what they're sharing, their narrative is moving value for financial institutions as a bridge currency. And of course, all the money in the world runs through the financial institutions. So essentially, you could say that's all the money. XLM is focused on peer to peer. And if you watch their previous commercial they just came out with, if you really pay attention to the ad in the commercial, it's moving money from peer to peer, person to person, from one side of the world to the other. So anyway, XRP has a very unique place in the new financial system. It's going to play a significant role. And 100 billion is the total amount of supply available. But when you're talking about all the money in the world, that's really not a lot because there's trillions of dollars in the world. We're talking about real estate, FX, the stock market, derivatives, the securities, the list goes on. And what will determine the price of XRP in the future, once real utility and mainstream adoption takes place, is the amount of value running through the network. That will determine the price. I know there's a lot of conversations out there about they don't have a mechanism or a way to determine a price of utility or digital assets. But I think we have some ways. And one of them is utility. And basically, the amount of value flowing through the network will determine the price for each of the digital assets on that network. So, for example, XRP, we know there's a limited supply of 100 billion. There's almost a little bit less than half of that circulating in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of value flowing through that will determine the price. So, and value can mean debt, it can mean equity, it could mean stocks, it could mean liabilities. That's what value is. So it could be either or. And based on that, I think that would give it, that would determine a price for it in the future. And I truly believe that the price is being manipulated right now. There's I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence to support that. I don't have any physical evidence, but there's a lot of suspicious activity with the price happening. And it's just very strange because you don't see that very often with other digital assets and cryptocurrencies. But I think the XRP being available to the public to purchase is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I think it's going to create life-changing wealth. I believe because it's such a superior financial instrument for moving value from one place to another, that you're going to be able to go to institutions in the future, whether it's financial institutions, like Fidelity, Schwab, who knows? I'm not sure who's going to be around in the future and who's not, but financial institutions will pay you to use your XRP as a settlement mechanism, as a liquidity token.
So you're saying you should hold on to it maybe, or banks will borrow it from you?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And the reason I believe that is because if you really pay attention to what they are doing behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
and their agenda since day one, since 2013 and 14, they've been very clear that their goal is to have to be actually a world reserve currency. They've stated that publicly. That's been their goal. It's even been stated on their website before.
I heard
And
that. Yep.
it's yeah, and it's interesting because it just shows you that they have so many plans that have been in place
For so long,
almost a
right?
decade ago,
Mm-hmm.
but yet,
Mm-hmm.
interestingly, they were the first ones to get a lawsuit by the SEC.
Yep.
Now, the Securities Exchange Commission, in my opinion, not to say anything that's too offensive, but they are the enforcers for the mafia, for the banking cartel and the big
Mm-hmm.
dogs, and they do it with regulations. Okay, so the SEC sued Ripple, which is the company, and it really slowed them down, and I think slowed
Mm-hmm.
mainstream adoption down. But I believe that just understanding the way these financial institutions, politicians, and bankers work, I think it's all part of the plan. Um, I think maybe a piece of it was to slow them down a bit
Mm-hmm.
so that governments or the banking sector can gain a little more control over the
Yep.
situation. And that's what the SEC is known for doing. So,
Mm-hmm.
all companies or technologies that disrupt sectors of the economy with innovation, they've been hit by the SEC. They've been sued.
So that's a
Uh,
good thing for us for XRP holders. It's like you're onto something. They're coming
it's
after us.
it's basically telling you you are onto something, and it's a very
Exactly.
clear pattern that
Mm-hmm.
the big dogs need control, and they use the SEC to hit them with something.
Mm-hmm.
So they did this with Tesla, they did it with Google, they did it with
Mm-hmm.
Uber, they did it with Amazon. Listen to the names I'm mentioning. These are
Exactly.
the ones that control those
Yes.
sectors of the economy. They're the biggest
Yes.
ones. And
Yes.
they did it to Ripple. So it's not a coincidence. It's all part of the plan.
Oh, for
And
sure. Oh,
yeah,
for
and
sure.
if people really understand how the people running the game operate and what they would do to control the situation and control people, then it would make more sense. I know
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it could sound like conspiratorial, but it's really not. And truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's true. And I think too that people who are holding XRP need to understand that this is also kind of like gold. It's wealth preservation for your family and down the road. It's
Mhm.
not just a get rich quick, because I think the comments that we see in our on our YouTube channel is, when is it going to pump? When am I going to get my money? When am I going to get it back? And I'm thinking you're missing the whole point of what XRP is. Maybe you should invest in something else. If you're some people threaten, I'm going to sell, it's not going anywhere, and I want to say, please sell, we'll buy it. Sell it, because you're not going to be able to ever get it again. There's, like you said, there's only a window that we're going to be able to jump in and hopefully even keep it. Hopefully they won't make more regulation. But when you say that XRP is, it's a wealth preservation for your family down the road, like when it pumps, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to sell it because I make X amount of dollars and I'm rich now, because you have to think beyond that. Because people who bought Bitcoin at, under a penny, if they would have sold it at, I don't know, $12, that's a really great thing. But now it's 40,000 or 60, up to 60, it's growing. And
It
so
went
we
all
have
the
to have,
way. Yeah.
yeah, you have to have a longer term than just, maybe if you want to flip it to make big money, maybe you should be in another altcoin or something. But XRP has such utility that I think they need to think broader. It's like a fine wine. You got to wait for it. It's not something, it's not $2 chuck. You're not going to be able just to, if you just want something quick and easy, then XRP is probably not your asset to invest in. That's me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that lacks with a lot of uh, investors and people that own assets is especially cryptocurrency and digital assets.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have a bit of a longer perspective and
Mm-hmm.
a longer long-term view because we're actually in the very early stages and the
Mm-hmm.
price appreciation, price going up, that's inevitable. of course it's going to happen, you know.
Yes, yes.
It's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also having a game plan is important because everybody's situation is different. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, if XRP goes to $10, you could have had somebody that got in below a penny, and
Yeah, that's
that
a big deal.
$10
Yeah.
is extremely life changing. So maybe if it can, you know, improve the quality of their life, maybe
Mm-hmm.
if you need to sell a small percentage
Exactly.
and then
Yes.
have a percentage that you hold. And this is what a lot of big investors do. They
Yes.
don't always sell everything and trade
Mm-hmm.
everything all at once. They
Yes.
have something called risk management, and they allocate their portfolio accordingly. So that's why due diligence and research is so important, because if you know what you hold,
Mm-hmm.
now you have a solid foundation to build your game plan and your exit strategy. So
Lovely.
for example, if X not if when XRP hits several bucks and higher, yes, if you need to sell a percentage so that you can make changes in your life and improve your quality of life, do so. Everybody's situation is different. But
Yes.
know this, that
Mm-hmm.
it's a smart idea to have some that you hold
Mm-hmm.
for long term.
Mm-hmm. And
And
it does depend
it,
on your age. It depends on different things. You're younger than I am.
absolutely.
So our goals are going to look different because we're getting into retirement and you're just starting off, doing it. So you've got quite a few years under your belt still. But I agree. But I just
Yeah.
think the people who are just looking at it just to sell it for a quick buck, I'm like, okay, sell it for your quick buck because you're not really an investor. You're more of a gambler. You've thrown it in, you're waiting to cash it in, go buy your Lambo and call it a day. And that's
Well,
okay too. If that's your goal and you make it, why not? Right. Like,
well, you're right, absolutely. And there's a gentleman by the name of Peter Lynch. He was a one of the greatest investors of all time and multi-billionaire. And he actually worked very closely with Warren Buffett as his mentor. And one of the things that Peter Lynch said in an interview with Forbes, they asked him about his mistakes or regrets. And the biggest mistake he's ever made in all his years and experience of trading, he said, was selling too early.
mm-hmm.
That was his biggest mistake, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the stocks he owned appreciated and went higher in value tremendously. But his biggest mistake was he sold too early.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie Munger, one of Warren Buffett's mentors, actually, he has a very popular quote that really resonates with me. He says, buying, no, what he said was, the big money is not made selling and buying, he said, but it's the waiting. And that's absolutely true. So
Good.
patience is key.
That's
Yeah,
good.
people need.
That's really
Mhm.
good. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's good, Vandal. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I know you're really wise in the economy and kind of what's happening. And one of the questions I wrote down was when XRP or crypto pumps, what would be the downside to that for the average person who's not invested, who is one of those family members we all have who la 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 la, they don't want to hear what's happening. What do you foresee happening when crypto goes up? What happens on the other side?
Absolutely.
Because everyone's
Mhm.
excited it's going to pump and it's like that might be great for you and I or our
Yeah.
community, but the people around us, I don't think that's going to be such a good thing for them. Like, go ahead and explain what you see or why you agree with that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that saying that somewhat goes around like this. Well, one person's pain is another person's pleasure. So there's a, what's happening is this: as asset prices increase, whatever, stocks, cryptocurrencies, digital assets, well, what happens when prices increase in the economy? I'm talking about your groceries, your rent, your just everyday necessities and supplies. As those prices go up, asset prices go up. So do you see what's happening here? It's because of monetary stimulus and
Mm-hmm.
capital being injected into the system. People can call it what they want: money printing, putting more money into the system, quantitative easing. The point is, more money is coming into the system, and inflation goes up. Forget the number they're telling you, the CPI, it's all manipulated. But the
Yes.
point is, your strawberries cost more than they did 4 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that means your dollar and the value of your currency, fiat currency, is getting weaker. As that happens, asset prices increase. So what we're going to see is this. In 2024, starting
Mm-hmm.
next month, going into the year, cryptocurrencies and digital assets are going to continue to rise in price. And inflation, I mean real inflation, the price of your goods, are going to continue to increase. So to answer your question, if you don't have any skin in the game, that is really extremely unfortunate because people don't want to admit this, but during market cycles like this, and different eras that we're living through where the world is changing rapidly, the economy is changing, your currency is getting weaker, there's always winners and losers.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't want to acknowledge that. They think everything is all dandy for everyone. Yes, you might be able to, provide for yourself and sustain yourself, but there's a lot of opportunity that could be life changing for you and your family, and you're missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And that life changing opportunity right now is in digital assets, cryptocurrencies, artificial intelligence, and robotics and technology.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, it's under the umbrella of technology. And specifically, we're talking about cryptocurrency and digital assets.
Mm-hmm.
But for somebody that's missing out on the opportunity, it's really a shame because there is so much wealth and fortune to be made in the near term and even in the long term.
Mm-hmm. We have family that are afraid to invest because they don't want to spend their money, because they'd rather have the cash in hand because that's where their risk tolerance is. We have others that, are invested in 401ks or RRSPs up there in Canada, and they're just hoping that that's going to be okay as inflation rises and everything starts going up. And I'm trying to explain to them, like, that's not a good thing. And so,
Actually, yeah, go ahead, Judy.
no, I was just gonna say it's not a good thing. It's just, it scares me because I think they're not ready for what's coming in 2024 into 2025.
Yes, absolutely. And
Right.
yes, you're right, absolutely. And as we go into 2024, as I said, asset prices are going to increase, and inflation or cost of goods is going to increase.
Will anything
That's
happen
what's
to
going to
their
happen.
investment accounts? Like, what will happen to someone who says, I have all my money in my 401k or my RRSPs up in Canada or whatever around the world? What will happen to those?
Yeah, so we have a friend who's a wealth manager named Clive Thompson, and we've spoken to him about this along with several others in our network who are way smarter than Versan and I. And they clearly highlight the risk of having too much money in the bank and a 401k just sitting there doing nothing. And the reason is because the financial system currently is extremely vulnerable. It's not something CNN, CNBC, or mainstream media is going to share with people, because if they did, they would literally have a financial collapse overnight. Because if this information got out,
They'd pull everything. They'd pull
your
it, right?
average person would be standing at the bank right now, skipping work
Mm-hmm.
just to pull their money out. And this would create a ripple effect in the financial system, and it would trickle down all the way to even family offices, small regional banks, and it would be devastating for the economy because even though the banking system is kind of it is corrupt. I was a former banker at IBC and Bank of America, so I can tell you. But even though it's corrupt, they still have a crucial place in the economy. So a bank run, which has happened in the past before, it happened in a country called Cyprus too in 2014. They had a financial collapse, and the International Monetary Fund had to step in and give them a loan essentially and bail the country out. And ATMs were on pause. People were standing outside. They couldn't get money out of the bank. It was a complete nightmare for people there, and it lasted for a while. And this is on record. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, do your research on this and Google it. People in Cyprus during that financial crash, a lot of people that had over $50,000 in the bank lost it forever, and they never got it back.
But people think because they have FDIC, they're safe. Like, oh, I'm safe. It's not going to affect me.
I can elaborate on that. So the FDIC stands for Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It's basically insurance for your bank in case something happens to your money. And you, if you have a bank account, checking account, savings account, you're considered an unsecured depositor in the legal term. That's what it's called. That's what you're called. And the unsecured depositor is actually at the bottom of the list in terms of priority for a bank. And that's the majority of people with a bank account. So the FDIC's role is to provide capital and refund a certain amount of funds to the unsecured depositor in case of the bank going bust or bankruptcy or something in that sense. But here's the problem. The FDIC does not have enough reserve assets to cover the trillions of dollars, over $9 trillion in US depositors' funds. So I'll give you a very good example of how to think of it. Let's say you have a car insurance with Geico, okay? You get in a serious car accident. Now, your insurance company, Geico, is supposed to cover that, right? And cover you and take care of you.
Yes.
That's why you have it. Yeah, they're supposed to. That's why you have to have insurance.
Exactly.
But Geico comes to you and says, look, I know you lost everything, but unfortunately, we don't have enough money to cover this. So we're going bankrupt. Sorry. That's the same thing that's going on with the FDIC right now. And they're keeping it under the table. So the FDIC is insuring more, covering more than they can actually afford to cover if something goes wrong.
Okay. So
that's the problem with the FDIC.
Listen up, guys. Listen up, because you're not going to hear this on CNN, but you're talking to a former banker, someone who knows what's going on behind the scenes. So I know you're not giving financial advice because we don't do that. So I'll just use you as a scenario and you can use me or whatever. But if you had a 401k or CDs, let's say you were getting ready to be retired or whatever, you had your money in a CD account or 401k, what would you do? Not financial advice, whatever other people would do, but what would you do knowing what you know, knowing where we're headed? What would you do to try to kind of secure your assets?
Yeah, knowing what I know, if it was me personally, which I've already done, you're speaking to someone who's already done this. Okay. I pulled everything out. I pulled everything out.
You took the tax hit because, you know, when you pull it, you have to pay tax on it, right? You take a hit, right?
Yeah. So personally, what I did is I sold all my stocks.
Okay.
Move those funds into digital assets and precious metals. So right now, those are my two babies right now. That's where my funds are sitting, because I understand what's going on with the economy. I know where we're going. I understand the currency debasement taking place, which means your value of your dollar is buying you less and less every day. And it's not going to stop. Even if they give you a CPI or inflation of 1%, oh, it went down. Sure, it went down compared to last month. But in reality, it's still up. That's how you got to understand it and look at it. And they manipulate the metrics and the data they give to the public. But what I would do is I would take the hit and I would get out and move my funds to something that's more secure and stable. The banking system is not stable right now.
Yes. And I was going to say, my next question is, do you think that the dollar, US dollars, what we're talking about, will collapse when crypto pumps? Because my understanding is when crypto goes up, it's because the US dollar is going down and there's the inflation and different things. But I mean, you kind of touched on it, but do you believe that, let me reword that, in January 1st, when the BRICS nations and Saudi Arabia joins, they've all said they want to de-dollarize, and that would cause a dollar collapse. Is that correct? And then crypto will probably pump because people are going to be scrambling saying, I got to get out of this and put it somewhere. So I'm going to either buy property or I'm going to put it into digital assets or gold or silver or something. Is that what you foresee happening in January? Because you just kind of talked about it a little bit, the dollar
Yeah.
collapsing in
No, so
January.
I'll be happy to elaborate and give my insight and
Yes,
opinion on this.
please.
So first of all, the only thing guaranteed is that nothing's guaranteed. So I base all my decisions off statistics and probability.
Mm-hmm.
So all my decisions are based off that, off the data and what is the probability of this or that happening.
Mm-hmm.
So based on the current environment we're in right now, with the monetary system, the financial system, the banking system, the devaluation of your currency,
Mm-hmm.
the appreciation of digital assets and technology, what I would do right now is I would allocate my funds to something more stable and or something that I know is going to appreciate in value and adoption is coming for that. So that's blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, digital assets, and gold and silver, precious metals. Now, as the dollar collapsing, I believe that the dollar has a very short lifespan left. Um, One of the big indicators of that is the currency becoming weaker with its
Mm-hmm.
buying power. That's a very good signal that the currency's lifespan is getting shortened. It's coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that we have blockchain technology being adopted mainstream now at the same time as the currency is going to its end of its life cycle.
Because it has to be replaced with something. All
It has
currency.
to be replaced something.
Yeah.
And the way these elites, bankers, banking cartel, the aristocrats, the people running the show, they plan in advance, because if they don't plan in advance, then they're planning to fail. So
Mm-hmm.
they are way ahead than people think. And that is the truth. That's not an opinion. That is a fact. They
Mm-hmm.
have the brightest minds working for them. They have the CIA, the NSA. I'm not going to say the other agencies, but the list goes on. They know what they're doing. They know what's coming. And the system was designed to crash at some point. It was built into the system like that. That's how it's built. It's designed to crash because ever since we went off the gold standard, now there's nothing to keep the
Back it.
government. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and exactly. And there's nothing to keep the government in place and
Mm-hmm.
prevent them from being reckless with the money supply and the monetary
Mm-hmm.
system. So ever since we went off the gold standard in 1971, 1972, that's when you have seriously seen um, the currency debasement, devaluation of currency really going downhill. But now more than ever in the past 4 years since the 2020 period, because we printed the most than we ever had in history in
Yeah.
the shortest amount of time.
Yeah.
And I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that or a mathematician. Just go to your local grocery store.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah,
$100
but
doesn't buy what it used to, that's for sure.
yeah,
Oh my
and
goodness. Yeah.
Judy, and that whole thing is not going anywhere. That is going to continue as we enter 2024 going into 2025. So about the dollar collapsing, I have my theory on this. I do believe that the dollar is going to be continue to lose value and purchasing power. And as for a collapse overnight, um, there is a probability of that. But what I see is it's going to be a very slow and steady process for the next year or two,
Mm-hmm.
going to that point.
What
I don't
about with
think
the
it's,
elections coming? Do you think, because a lot of people are thinking, oh, nothing's going to happen. Everything's going to pump. It's going to be great because it's an election year. They're not going to crash the dollar. I'm like, well, maybe we don't have total control over that if the BRICS and other nations are
yeah, I have,
debasing our dollar.
yeah. So the US as they continue to print money, they're exporting inflation to other countries. So inflation is actually worse in other countries than it is in America here right now. So as we go into 2024, they're going to continue to print money. Asset prices will continue to rise, and the value of the purchasing power of your currency will continue to weaken. Now, I had a conversation with Dr. Jim Willey, who's a friend of ours, but he does a lot of speaking on podcasts like yourself and shows like you guys. And he was explaining that the dollar countries are not going to dump it all at once overnight. Okay, because what happened is recently in Japan, they went through a little financial crisis right there, and they figured out that, okay, if we dump dollars this fast, because that's what they were doing there, like they saw the result or the byproduct of doing that in Japan. And what they realized is if they did this all at once, it would literally create chaos. And it could get to a point where it would not be controllable for them to restore law and order. So I don't think they would do it overnight. And actually, there's a term for that. It's called Project Sandman or something like that. And basically, it's this concept of about 140 something plus countries dumping the dollar overnight.
I heard that.
In a public announcement. And that would create chaos. Like literally, it would be devastating. And it would almost be uncontrollable unless they sent out martial law and had a whole contingency plan in place. So I don't see that happening. It's possible. It's possible though.
Fingers crossed. We don't want that to happen. So if there was a liquidity crisis, in simple terms, how do you think XRP will respond?
Well, so this is my theory. XRP is a liquidity token. It's a settlement. It provides instant settlement. So they can move value instantly from one place to another, from one part of the world to the other, one financial institution to the other. And that's what an instant settlement is. It gets to where it needs to go instantly without any intermediaries, no middlemen. So a liquidity crisis would need liquidity because that's why the crisis is taking place. So XRP would be a perfect candidate as a liquidity mechanism to prevent a financial collapse.
Okay, good.
Now, whether they use it or not, it's really hard to say. But if there was a liquidity crisis, which has been happening very slowly, it's not getting mainstream coverage.
Right.
But if it escalated to a point where it became global, what would happen with the financial system and the banks is they would have to shut their doors. They would have to freeze all stocks. All exchanges would be frozen. All ATMs will be frozen. And it's a systematic lockup, basically. It's a banking freeze. And this is what happened in Cyprus in 2014. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but in 2012 to 2014, Barack Obama, along with other G20 leaders, created the Financial Stability Board. And their mandate is to promote financial stability for different nations and the economy and the monetary system. And that was around the same time as the financial crisis that took place in Cyprus, where they did have a banking freeze, like we're talking about. And in that Financial Stability Board, they have a lot of complicated, complex language that's almost foreign to most people, but it outlines their template on how to respond to the next financial crisis. So they already have a template and a guide on how to respond to it.
So it kind of makes you think that they might be expecting it if you have
They are
a
expecting it.
plan, right? Like it's coming, guys.
Yes, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. That language is not in there for no reason.
Exactly.
Set
They
up
don't
by
waste their
Barack
time.
Obama and G20 leaders from other nations. It's in there because they know, as we discussed previously, the system is inevitably going to give out. Right now, the only reason it's still going is because we're using something called life injection, which is pumping money into the system to keep it going. But eventually, we can't do that forever.
What
And
will
they know
cause
that.
it to stop? What will it cause to stop being able to inject that money? Is it the BRICS nations? Is it Saudi Arabia not changing in dollars anymore? Like what will cause that all of a sudden you can't get that, liquidity shot anymore or that financial pump? What will cause that?
Yeah, so it's really difficult to say. I think there would be many factors that all come together at once.
Okay.
But the way money is created and put into the system is from creating debt. So it will all start from the debt market. So I can't talk too much about that, but basically what I can say is it's inevitable and it's going to come, and people need to be prepared because when it does happen, you don't want to be that person trying to get your ducks in a row at the last minute, because those people are always the losers, unfortunately. Yeah. And it's been like that throughout history. And it was the same concept, the same thing that happened in Cyprus too, when they had their financial crisis.
Yeah, it was
but
shocking.
Yeah, and it got covered maybe 2 or 3 times on BBC News around 2014. But after that, it never made headlines. They didn't want to scare the world with that.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it was
yeah,
scary.
yes. And so what happened is they had a system freeze. Now, there's a gentleman who's an author. He's also a lawyer. He was an investment banker, and he did some consulting for the Pentagon and the CIA. His name's Jim Rickards. So he has a very good book.
Jim Rickards is amazing. Yes.
Yes, very smart man.
Oh,
he has a
brilliant
book called The Road to Ruin. And in his book, he actually elaborates more in detail on the Financial Stability Board and the liquidity crisis and the financial crisis that took place in Cyprus. So he talks in more detail about that if anybody's interested.
Yeah, Jim Rickards is amazing. A very wise man. Wow. Would you love to have him on your show?
Oh, yes. No, we've tried reaching out to him. We haven't got any responses, and it's difficult to say. Sometimes I got to be honest, Judy. I feel like we get a lot of rejections because we're too on point. And I feel like some of the people we reach out to, they just maybe they're not allowed to talk about certain things.
Exactly. That makes sense.